Welcome to the After Dark podcast with Anthony James and Konrad. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Hello and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James and that's Konrad.
Hello.
And back with us again, it's Emmett.
Oh my god, I feel like a shell-shocked veteran at this stage with everything that's happened in season 3.
Oh my god. Okay, so before we go any further, I just want to say we made a decision between the last episode and this episode to have Emmett just watch up to episode 7 of season 3. So he hasn't seen the finale yet. We're going to be doing that next week. And the reason we decided to do that is one, obviously, for that sweet, sweet content. And the other thing is because next week, I think, it's very close to the year anniversary of Dark season 3 coming out. So 23rd of June is when it came out. It'll go up on the 21st of June. So therefore, we're like celebrating Dark season 3 coming out with Emmett experiencing it for the first time. What do you think, guys?
It's predestined, surely.
Yeah, it's predestined. It's like
predetermined. Sorry, excuse me. Like
Yeah.
it was a deterministic model that we're living in here, and we didn't have any other choice but to end up this way. It was always going to end this way.
Yeah, predetermined. See, if you say predetermined, Dark pops into my head. But when you said predestined, it popped into my head was like a little red comet going across the Dothraki sea sky. You know?
Cool. The end is the beginning, and the beginning is the end.
Yeah, well, that's how it is on this channel, and it shall always be. Anyway,
Mary Mazda.
Yeah.
Yes,
All
I
right.
remember that witch's name. All right, come at me.
What about Quaithe?
Oh, yeah, they did her dirty in the series. Where's Wooden Mask Lady? Where's she gone?
Yeah, exactly. All right, okay, so we're going to very quickly get into it because we've got a lot to talk about. Obviously, there's so much in this season. It's going to take the shape of general. We're going to ask Emmett how he thinks his theories got on. A couple of them hit. I'm sure he already knows that. And then we are going to be talking about his thoughts about all the different reactions of big parts of Season 3, except for the finale. And then we'll ask him what his theories are for the finale. So, guys, are you ready to get into it here?
Let's do it.
I'm ready to rock. Let's go.
Are we doing a transition this week, or are we just taking a pregnant pause?
Oh, let's break it down!
Okay, so Season 3, Emmett. We'll start off talking about your theories. You're coming out of Season 2. What did you get right? What did you get wrong?
Well, the big one that I got right, which, I think I can be awarded full credit, is the Eve theory, that Old Martyrs was going to be Eve.
I actually, coming out of Season 2, that was my first video I ever put up was the Adam and Eve theory.
Yeah, well, again, they set it up well with the whole biblical sort of element of Dark, where, like, obviously there's characters like Adam and Noah, so it feels good to piece it together, and, like, obviously it means you're paying attention, but it's like, oh, yes, this fits very naturally, and, like, it's a very interesting sort of, development, especially because Marta, or at least the main universe Marta, she's been involved, but she's not been, like, that in the know and maybe not had that much influence on the plot at times.
Mm-hmm.
But then, the Alt Marta, obviously, especially in the rest of Season 3, is incredibly important and has a lot of influence on everything. So it's good to see her, like, at least a version of her being more active within the plot.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that a lot,
Okay.
And then I'm trying to think of what some of my other theories... Well, one of my theories, which obviously because we haven't seen the end of the season yet, is still... Or I haven't seen the end of the season, is still hanging up in the air, which is, to break the cycle, they might need to erase Winden from existence. Like, they might need to get rid of the town, because that's the root of where... I don't know if I'm any stronger or weaker on that point, now that I've seen all of Season 3 except the last episode, because there's some bits that make me think, oh, maybe I'm right, and then other bits where I'm like, for example, the Triple Man, or whatever we're going to call him, the
Gary.
Father, the Son,
Gary / the Unknown. The Unknown? Is that what they called him?
Also, yes, he's called the Unknown in the show, but also Konrad called him the Cleanup Crew.
Yeah,
the cleanup
CUC.
crew.
So just go around killing people.
My name for him, jokingly, was the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Just to sort of keep the biblical aspect of it.
Wait, which one's which? Is the old man the ghost?
Yes, the old man's the ghost. Obviously
okay.
the little boy is the son.
Right,
It's
okay.
like It's sort of like my version of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. It's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
I mean, it does work. I did some analysis in an episode of Dark Discussions way back when, where I was talking about the role of who's Jesus, basically, in Dark.
Yes.
And I came to the conclusion that it's actually, and we're at the point now, pretty sure.
Careful now.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Careful
thinking.
now.
I'm pretty I think I can't say what I want to say, even though I probably can. I'm not going to. I'll save it for next week. So next week, Emmett, ask me who's Jesus.
Yeah.
Who's Jesus?
But so you're predicting a world without Wyndon, you might say.
Yeah, a world where Wyndon doesn't exist, or a world where Wyndon did exist, but like eventually sort of fell apart because they never had like the power plant. In like Wyndon, they got rid of the power plant because it's where obviously a lot of the dark matter and stuff comes from. So like if you wanted to really end the apocalypse, you would get rid of that. So obviously we see that the cleanup crew, Gary, he had a big hand in its existence.
Yeah.
In a whole.
Yeah.
So, to untangle the knot, that sort of makes me think that potentially I'm right on that one. Again, I still have to watch the last episode, so I don't know. But, the fact that he not only ensures that the power plant exists, but also ensures that in both timelines that the meltdown happens, makes me think maybe I'm on to something there, and, I'm just waiting. And again, I just keep always thinking back to how people describe things like Wyndon as like a black hole, as like a cancer, and wanting to wipe it off the map. Like the most obvious thing there is obviously it being wiped off the map by the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if they're talking about that's a way to fix the problem. But things that make me a little bit more skeptical about my theory at this stage is now the ever-expanding, complicated family tree that is all of Wyndon.
Yep.
Where it's like, there's some town that where me and Anthony are in Ireland, and there's some towns out in Ireland which are really small and everyone knows each other, and there's always a joke made where people are born and inbred with that town. They really take it to a whole different level in Wyndon.
Small town living.
That's what happens when you have small town living mixed in with time travel.
Everyone's your cousin. It's unavoidable.
Or everyone's your aunt. Did the director? No, this might come across as a little bit disrespectful. Did the director of Dark have a really attractive aunt that he was close to? Because there's a lot of people quite close with their aunts in this in this series, and I'm just like, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but this happens enough where I'm like, is this autobiographical to a certain extent?
I mean, I feel like the depiction of those relationships isn't wholly positive. So it's I feel like they're more. Yeah, I feel like they are thankfully coming down on the side of being against incest.
Anti-incest, a hard line to toe.
Also, Eunice and Old Martyr aren't from the same world, so although technically DNA-wise incest, come on,
there's plenty of times in this season where particularly the older Old Martyrs are giving Jonas a little nudge and be like, listen, you guys can be together here. There's no rules against it. And it's like, I feel like, okay, while technically that might be correct, in spirit, it's still wrong. Suggesting that.
It doesn't make Jonas any less half your DNA in the sense of he's related to your brother. It's yes, it's DNA from another timeline, but Jesus Christ, it is so great. And then when obviously we finally get revelations for who's related to certain characters that we didn't know about already, which just further tangles it, and you're looking at it being so are you related to this person, but then you married this person, and oh my god, I'm so confused. It's
So next week we're gonna have the dark quiz when I'm gonna quiz you two. But I'll ask you this, Emmett, just to see where your understanding is now. I'm gonna ask you a couple of characters, and I want to tell you tell me who their parents are. Okay.
Okay.
Who are Noah's parents?
So it's Bartos and Silja, who is the daughter of Hanna and Egon, I believe.
Bingo, bango, you got it.
Yeah.
So, we stick with Celia here. We try and be a bit highbrow. I mean, it's funny, like there's a lot of names I really mispronounce really badly, and I think I'm doing great. And then someone in the comments says, just so you know, like, so I actually got a private message on Instagram from quite a big Instagram page who's like a Dark fan, and they said, just so you know, for the next $18.99. It's Barat. I can't even pronounce it. I haven't even looked up, but I was pronouncing the creators of the show's names quite slightly wrong.
Oh, okay.
And they said, great stuff or whatever. Just get that right for the next time, just because people will slate you,
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, fair enough. The creators of the show. I thought I was doing a good job. Apparently not.
Yeah. Well, was it Celia for the character that I had just mispronounced? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah. Not
Apologies. Yeah, Celia, sorry, apologies on that one. I think her name has been said very few times.
You just Silja Boy'd that hoe.
God,
call us back to
little callback.
Little callback to our previous discussions on the After Dark podcast, right? You've actually shown me that you know quite a lot about.
He is paying attention.
You're paying attention.
Yes, I want to know everything. I want to understand like this complicated family tree because now it's become this situation. Because before it was like if we stop the time travel, only Jonas will be gone. But it's like, oh, that's not true anymore. If we stop the time travel, we're not just going to lose Jonas. We're going to use like Noah, Agnes, and then we're going to lose Charlotte, and we're gonna lose so many more people if the time travel doesn't happen. So that's part of my reason why I'm like, maybe they're not going to get rid of Wyndon, because if they get rid of Wyndon, then it's not just Jonas that disappears from the timeline. It's a load of other very important people who disappear. So that's why.
It's a knot. It's it's well described. It's a big old mess.
Yeah, they're very important. They're very important in regards to keeping this incestuous knot going.
Yes.
Do humans have inherent importance, Emmett?
Oh, that is a very good question. That is a very good question. It's a very philosophical question where it's like very quick aside, and then we'll get back to Dark. It's that question of like, if the human race was whittled down to the point where it's so small that the only way for it to survive would be to do something terrible to keep the human race alive. Is there inherent worth in keeping the human race alive if you have to do something that is so morally reprehensible that like, it completely warps what the species is going to be going forward? Like, that's an interesting philosophical question to me, where it's like, what is the merit of humanity's continued existence if, our existence is predicated on, like, say we were to, like, bring back slavery to ensure the survival of the human race? Like, what is the merit of human existence at that point?
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying, I'm coming down on the side of, like, we should just let the human race die off at that
100%.
stage.
The Earth
that's the only option,
The Earth would be better off, if nothing else.
Yes.
Yeah. We are a scourge on this planet, 100%.
You can 100% make that argument for it's like, for the, if you value the continuing existence of Earth more than the human race, like, welcome to Earth. You can like make a really good argument for like, maybe we shouldn't be around. We're causing a lot of havoc,
I wish time capsules existed in like backwards. Because I knew the human race was going to go, but then I saw a time capsule and there was like intelligent rats or something, right? And just like pottering about, and they have their own society now. I'd be like, all right, well, there's no reason why we can't, let that grow. So we'll let the humans go, because I like the idea of this rat society being there.
Yeah,
where is this conversation going? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Apparently,
well, I suppose it's coming down to the one of the main.
How is it? Explain to me how this is related to Dark in any way.
I can't because he hasn't seen episode 8.
I will 100% be able to tie this back into Dark, because Adam and Eve are both doing terrible things to ensure the existence of their own timelines.
They're doing each other to maintain.
Adam doesn't see. Adam seems to have wanted to destroy things for most of this time.
Yeah. But Eve wants to, even Eve, who's trying to save her own timeline, she's doing horrible stuff, like essentially ensuring the destruction of a whole different timeline, a whole different world of people. And it's like that's what I mean. That's an interesting conundrum that Dark itself sort of kind of brings up to a certain extent. It's like, at what point, like, at what level of depth are you willing to sink to ensure survival for your people, and is that worthwhile? You know, that's an interest. So, like, we went kind of off on a weird tangent, but it does sort of tie into something that's brought up a lot in 3.
I think the thing in season 3, to relate back to that always struck me, is that, like, it finally kind of explains why Adam's goal has been to destroy everything. So I think up until that point, it's kind of like, I don't really understand why Adam just wants everything to be fucked up, because it seems like a net loss for literally everyone involved in the situation. But in season 3, I really like the way they kind of land that narrative plane, so you understand why he has this, like, scorched earth approach to everything. It's like, if I can't have it, no one's having it. Like, let's just burn it all down, basically.
Yeah. Well, I kind of understood it from like a philosophical standpoint, because like in this world of Dark, we've sort of established that, you know, you can argue that no one has free will in this world, because time and like the loop will always force things to go back to the way that they're supposed to be.
But is that a comment on humanity's inherent desire to repeat behaviors that we are predisposed to performing? That's how I read that as well. Like, you know, Ulrich will always beat Helga's head in, because Ulrich is the kind of person who will always make those mistakes and beat Helga's head in. So I do think you're right. I think it is saying, like, oh, you know, they don't really have free will, but I think it is also a comment on the very nature of free will itself. Like, are we really free within ourselves to make these kind of choices that are out of character? Because none of these characters are gonna ever change, basically.
Yeah, I think obviously season 3 with the alt timeline, getting to see, you know, certain things have changed, but certain things continue along. For example, like, Ulrich is always going to end up cheating on his partner. That seems to be a big issue of his.
Set your watch to an Ulrich affair. Like, it's always kind of like...
Lovely fella.
Yeah, lovely fella. Like, I'm not, you know, defending any of his cheating. It's just, it seems to be a problem that he has. You know, Hanna will never be happy whatever timeline sort of she's in. She always, because she's always obsessed with Ulrich. It ends up always causing her a lot of pain and stuff, and it's just very interesting. I will say, one positive thing in all timelines, and I hope the last episode of season 3 does not mess us up. My favorite relationship in the show has to be Magnus and Francesca.
Francisca.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Francisca. Because
Francesca.
No matter the time, no matter the timeline, no matter like the point in the history, they seem to love each other seem to like. Because Dark is a show that is filled with people having affairs and being in loveless marriages and stuff like that, and they seem to be like the one like the two people who love each other unequivocally, no matter the timeline. And I really hope that, like, you know, freaking the last episode.
Noah and Ellie as well. That's the other one I'd say. Like, those two, I think that's a pretty pure relationship.
Yeah. Again, I think I maybe just noticed Francesca and Magnus more.
He's done it again.
Francesca.
Oh, sorry. Apologies.
The only reason I'm pointing this out is because I'm worried that I'm not good, because my like skill and knowledge retention is very poor at the best of times. Yeah. So I just want to I basically want to score points before we actually get to the quiz, so that when I'm trounced, it's not as embarrassing as it could otherwise
be. But also, Konrad and I are both pedantic fucks, so...
Just to annoy you tonight, I'll just refer to her as Franny all the time.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Magnus and Franny. But I guess I just noticed it in, you know, the alt timeline as well, because obviously, you know, in that timeline, obviously, for whatever reason, she's the one who is deaf.
Yeah.
And, you know, Magnus has obviously gone through a lot more, like, from his parents' divorce and stuff, but they still found each other, and, like, they still really seem to care about each other, and we see a little bit more of their, like, future incarnations, and the fact that, like, they still seem to care a lot about each other, and, like, oddly, in this show, especially in seasons 3, where, like, oh my god, it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. You lose a lot of people at different points. Like, it's this odd little, like, moment of light where it's just, like, seeing these two people who, like, have been through so much, but at least have each other. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. And I really, really hope that I don't get a horrible gut punch in the next episode. I'm like, if the whole town explodes and everyone dies and we end on like a downer note, I want to at least know that Franny and Magnus still loved each other. Because I just think of like, because the last episode ended with like, or at least one of the last episodes ended with like their alt versions dying in the explosion.
Yeah.
But like them dying together was quite sweet, and especially because, you know, they had that little conversation because like obviously Old Marta Eve had tried to warn Magnus and he didn't believe her. And like they had this moment of like, oh well, at least if the world ends today, we're together.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
Like,
It has like a very kind of like teenage devil may care attitude to it. It was like, do you really mean that, or are you just saying that because you're 18? And then but I mean, you know, they stick to their guns.
They really mean it because they're 18. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, they really mean it because they're 18, and you also see that at least in one timeline they do stick together and they do love each other. So it's like it's one of those funny things of like I can imagine Katarina in that timeline being like, "Oh, what do you know about love? You're 18." And then like, they know about love. That was true love potentially.
They turn up in their 50s and there's like, listen, not only did we stay together, but we stayed together through several apocalypses. So,
maybe Mum, you can't throw stones.
Well, if that was me and I saw that thing coming towards me, it would not have been as lovely and sweet. It would have been me.
Yeah, we
record scratch, freeze frame as you're like turning around and running away from it.
Yeah, I would not go quietly in the town. I would be running.
I'd probably jump under the water, to be honest. Because they're by the lake, I think, when they die, aren't they? Like, so I don't know what happens. I guess the water probably just like superheats and you just boil alive.
We had this conversation with the Sisyphus episode recently where the same sort of thing happened, and like I was like, I would just like the character just stood there and just accepted. I was like, jump in the water. There's water right there.
Yeah,
give it a go. Let's see what happens. You know? What do you got to lose?
Yeah, even if I have to live 10 minutes more being boiled to death, I still want a bit more life. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna say it's really interesting as well because like if you look at the family tree. Both Franziska, as most characters are, it seems, both Franziska and Magnus are actually related. Like they're like second cousins or something.
Which so by the standards of the show.
No. Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, I really respect them because it's almost like they knew like that they were related. They found out they were related, and they were like, let's not have any kids. You know?
Yeah.
I also think that's part of like, you know, especially the current mindset that some people have where it's like the world seems like it's almost on fire. Should we bring any children into this world? And like for them it's much more apparent that like the world's in a bad place. It's like, why don't we wait until we figure out if the world's not going to be destroyed and then we'll consider having kids. Maybe we can adopt or something, you know? It's like, God.
They adopted. I like to think of them as like as Adam's adoptive parents, you know.
Yeah.
it's like Stewie in Family Guy. Like he thinks he's this maniacal, crazy guy, but really they're the parents. Be like, off to bed, Adam. Off to bed.
Yeah. They're the ones making him eat his vegetables and stuff. Because otherwise, he's just going to stay up eating crisps in his library.
Yeah.
Getting burnt trying to do time travel, you know.
Jeez. Oh, yes, exactly. Okay, so you obviously showed how his transition. So we'll start there, actually. There's a load of things we need to talk about here. But what do you think about that transition from Stranger, Middle Jonas into Adam?
Yeah, well, you sort of see him sort of reach, like, the end of his hope. And that sort of leads to his, like, sort of nihilistic or more nihilistic worldview that you see with Adam. Like, the idea of, like, destroying everything. So, like, you can kind of just see with the Stranger just going through all these hardships, all of these failures, like, it just chipping away at him, and, like it, like, if we're talking, to continue the metaphor of, like, sculpturing, you know, it's like, you know, you chip away and make this new sculpture of Adam underneath the Stranger. It's like, it was always there, but, like, all these hardships brought that out in him, and I think that's culminated in a great way, and, like, it's sort of, You see, obviously, that he gets burnt and stuff like that and ends up looking like Adam, but, like, the moment that it's cemented that he has become Adam is when he kills his own mum, like, smothering her with a pillow so that he can take Celia, so that she can be part of the plan to, like,
I will say as well, it's after Hanna comes back and apologizes for everything. Now Hanna
takes responsibility for things that aren't her fault as well.
I mean, like, she did steal the time machine. Okay, fair enough. So which did cause a bit of a headache. But she actually goes on such a journey that she comes back and actually apologizes for everything.
Yeah.
And it only took her having a son, a daughter that she actually cared about to do for. So what do you think, like, in terms of Hanna, like, that's why the whole way through, the whole time we've been doing these podcasts, like, I've always known where Hannah's character ended up. So I always maybe defend her a little bit too much in the beginning when I don't need to, because she is a bit of she's an absolute sociopath. But she does have a sort of a come to Jesus moment at the end, and she apologizes and she's like back. She wants to be with her son, because having the daughter realize actually having her daughter realize probably what, like, all the failures she had for her son. So then she went and found him. I think I don't know if you caught it, but Eva took her there. That's how she was able to get to that odd year. And then Adam's just like, you know what? I can't move on until I'm truly free. And he just like,
gotta cut himself free from all the ties that bind him, and he's gonna cut those threads with a pillow to the face. It was I would love to know more about Hannah's journey. Obviously we get a lot of hints about, like, how she's grown. I would love to know more about, like, her time with her daughter, before she died, because we have a big jump, obviously, from, like, we see her sort of, like, dealing with the pregnancy and the knowledge that she's pregnant, and then we cut forward in her timeline a lot to when she actually already has the daughter and has been with her for a long time.
Well, I think she ends up in the 90s. Like, so she goes into the 80s. She takes her time travel forward and raises Celia in the 80s, and obviously crosses over into the 90s because Celia's like 7 or something like that. So she would have, whenever Eva came to get her, it would have been like 93.
Yeah. So Celia got to experience Nirvana, that's
always fun.
A good choice made by Hanna there.
I would love it if, like, in certain scenes, Celia was just singing "Smells Like Teen Spirit" and stuff in the background. That would be good,
Yeah, they've got a Walkman playing "In Bloom" as they arrive. I think like there's not to like change our tack too much here, but I think there's a few deaths in this season. But I think Hannah's, to me, is probably the most impactful, and that is saying something, because the three I'm thinking about are all real big moments.
What about Peter Doppler?
Yeah, I mean, Peter and Katarina are the other two that are like, woof. Like, these are rough. But I think Hannah's, to me, because Peter does have an arc, but it's less of a pronounced one than Hannah's. I think Katarina and Hanna are the real... Like, Peter's is brutal. Peter's is like something out of Saving Private Ryan, as we've discussed before, like with the kind of slow horror in his eyes as he realizes what's about to happen. Whereas I think Hanna and Katarina, for me, those are like such brilliant culminations of those characters' journeys, and they're both heartbreaking. But I think I prefer Hannah's, as far as one can prefer a death.
Yeah, I think I maybe lean on liking Katarina's a little bit, or feeling it a bit more, maybe is a more of a correct way of putting it. Because I don't know, like, because we got a lot more, we'd had a lot of hints in early seasons that her mother was, like, abusive towards her in early seasons, and then we see a bit more of it in this season. And, like, just the fact that, like, Katarina has been trying so hard this whole show to get her family back together, and she seems like she's just about to do it, and the only way she can do it is by confronting, like, the person who abused her for so much of her life, and she seems like she gets, like, away with it at first, and then she gets murdered by her abuser, and, then her present self at that point has to deal with her mum's reaction to the fact that she just killed her, and it's continuing the abuse, and it's just a horrible cycle. And, like, I just feel so bad because Katarina's one of those people who's just trying to, like, her goal is so simple and so relatable in the sense of she's just trying to fix her family. She doesn't care about, like, the grander scheme of all these plots and stuff. She just wants her family, and that's very relatable. And also then, because Antoinette pointed this out, the moment where you realize that she is the dead body in the water that they were talking about in the earlier seasons.
And that was her own children talking about that.
and it's just like, oh no.
And she was the one who left the St. Christopher pendant on the beach for her daughter to find.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't leave it. She ripped
intentionally.
Ripped it off her mum, you know.
Yeah.
But basically the same thing though. I'll also say like there's a little bit of an analysis can be done if you were that way inclined in terms of like the trauma that Katarina had, right? So trauma from like a young age, maybe teenagers a little old to repress the trauma, but like it can come out later in life. So if you just were to view it like as like a metaphor, it's like Katarina, her life starts falling apart when her husband cheats on her. All this trauma from her teenage years starts coming back till eventually the trauma kills her. It's really, really interesting in that regard, you know.
And it also informed, because we see like Katarina as a young adult, and like she's a bit of a shithead and a bully, but like you can see that like a lot of that is coming out from the way that she's been treated by her mother, which doesn't justify anything that she does, but at least contextualizes, and you understand a bit more about how she ended up at this person who does this sort of stuff to other people, because she feels powerless in her own home, so she wants to exert power in other places.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's very, Katarina is a very sympathetic character, and it's just very sad to see her go in that way. And then even though he's a divisive character, seeing old Ulrich waiting there for Katarina, and she's never going to be there, and like he had hope again for a brief moment, and it's dashed once more, and he's going to have to spend the rest of his life in the insane asylum, in the care home, and there's nothing he can do about it, and just that look on his face also hits, because it's just that moment of, oh, she's not coming, I'm stuck here, this is it. And it's just like, Ulrich, obviously did a lot of terrible things, but I think we can agree that like his fate was not, proportional to the crimes that he committed, if you know what I mean.
I don't know. He smacked the kid in the head in with a rock. I don't know.
He did, but
if that was my son, I would want the person who smacked him with a rock to be sitting at the age of 85 in a mental institution. Like,
sure. Well, again, my only thing would be that, like, again, it doesn't justify what he did, but in the same way with Katarina, you can see how he ended up at the conclusion that he did, and also
I'm just talking about like letter of the law.
Oh yeah, letter of the. But at the same time, this was back. If it was today, yes, because we have stricter laws about how
in the 50s prisoners. They were everyone was bashing kids' heads.
Yeah, back in the good old days.
Oh no, I more meant back in the good days when you could just kill a kid and okay. But I more
political correctness gone mad is what it is.
I just want to kill a kid. I just want to murder a child. God, that's gonna be a voice clip.
We're clipping that.
Yeah, that's gonna be a voice clip. I'm gonna run for office at some point, and that's gonna be used against me. But no, I mean, like, in the sense of, like, if it was modern day and we were putting someone away for that crime, yeah, totally. It's just, like, back in the 50s, because we see from the brief stints that Ulrich is
Are you saying back in the... You are actually saying, so back in the 50s he didn't deserve to stay in as long?
Yeah, well, no, back in the 50s he was tortured, essentially, for, like, because they didn't have, like, strict sort of laws on how to treat prisoners, and I feel more sympathy for him on that front, because he had to go through probably decades of being like brutalized, beaten, drugged.
So 80 years in prison is these from like today is equivalent to like 20 in the 50s because of how badly you're treated.
Yeah, well, because like they like, and again he did nearly kill Haig, but he didn't, and he's also being convicted of like the murders of two people he did not kill, and like that's where my sympathy sort of comes in for him.
Attempted murder.
It's like attempted murder, yes. Yeah. But like attempted murder is a much shorter sentence than actual murder, from my understanding. And also, he did not kill those other two kids. And
apples and oranges here. What are we arguing? This man beat. I say this in a way to rile the comments too, because I know like obviously there is like both sides, and obviously there's a lot. There's a lot of empathy in the Ulrich character. Let me just say. But when you start talking about the nitty gritty details of it. Yeah. You can't help but just look like you're advocating a short sentence for someone who beat a child's head in. Like... Listen,
I mean, look at Helga. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. That kid, come on.
He was always going to be a serial killer. He was interested in birds.
He had it coming. He came at him with a knife. That's all.
although I will say, like I'm coming across like very sort of justice system penal. I just give these people therapy. That's all I think. But at the same time, like beat a head's kid in, and I think he probably did. It. Yeah, Yeah, I nailed it.
Yeah.
Has he actually changed his attitude? Like, that's what I mean. So this is the whole point. I'm up for giving someone a really short sentence because obviously the whole point is not just to lock people away. The whole point is to, what's the word? I'm thinking of the
rehabilitate.
To rehabilitate them, right? And to actually give them therapy and actually have them realize, and change that person and get them back into society. Ulrich, at 85 years old or whatever he is, has not changed one bit. Like, he doesn't regret hitting that kid's head. He regrets that he didn't hit it harder.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, he definitely. His sympathetic qualities doesn't necessarily come from his own actions. I think my sympathy comes from him from the mistreatment of prisoners at that time, and the fact that he was just essentially tortured for several decades. Because like, I
don't know if I think he was tortured. This is purely interpretation, but I got the impression he was beaten up because they wanted to try and get information out of him about what he did to the other kids, and when it became, and so I reckon that maybe lasted a few weeks before they realised they weren't going to get anything. I mean, it's not great. I'm not saying torture prisoners, but like,
he was tortured in a physical sense, and then he went to the insane asylum where he was drugged forcefully and kept in a location against his will for like months and like the method of psychiatric care at that point was not good, so like he was not treated well, and then like it's just he did terrible things, but I do not think that the the punishment was
didn't fit the crime.
It didn't fit the crime in the sense of like, he should be in prison for the rest of his life. He probably shouldn't be drugged and beaten for several weeks. Like, that's probably not the way to go about that,
I'm just laughing so much at this because it happened exactly what I thought. I thought we'll stoke this fire of the Ulrich chat because it'll get the comments going, and then 5 minutes later we're still talking about it, and I'm just like, no matter how much time we talk about this, no matter how much we change, I'll change the side I'm arguing from and everything, you'll always get people in the comments who want to give their 2 cents on the Ulrich situation, and it's just hilarious to me that I already know we're gonna get the comments. I already know.
Has the creator of the show discussed Ulrich much outside of the context of like the?
He said he should have got the death penalty.
Oh, interesting. I'm not a death penalty person, Just to put that out there, not a big believer in that,
That's not your alter ego. Death penalty person.
I want to murder children, but not be put to death for it. Like I want to be able to get out of it.
And a fan of murdering children. That's like,
but not a fan of murdering
with
prisoners.
Impunity. But not prisoners. Yeah, that's right.
Hold on, I'll do a big smile here, and then someone can put that underneath as like a
Right, Emmett, you're in favour of murdering children, but here's a question for you. Nice segue here. Are you in favour of murdering your alternate self to save your children? That is, in my mind, the most badass moment, and I've said it before, I love that moment. I will sometimes just go and rewatch that moment alone, where Claudia shoots herself in the head. I love it so much.
Drops are like a bad habit, as Jim Ross would occasionally say.
It was one of the fucking coolest moments of the not to start cursing, but it was one of the coolest moments where it's like she's just like, you know what? Screw Adam, screw Eve. I'm gonna do my own thing. Yeah. And it's like, pulling a gun on herself.
I'm going to Disneyland.
I'm going to Disneyland.
But old Claudia is just like so slimy. It's such a good performance from that actress as well, because like the difference is really subtle. But you look at like Claudia and how kind of grounded she is, and then you look at old Claudia and it's just like, oh, I hate you immediately. And it's she had it coming.
Yeah, and like gunning down her alt self was because like the moment where like the alt Claudia like sort of realizes, oh, I'm about to be shot, is very, very interesting. Where she's like, this wasn't part of the plan, I don't think. I just got a gun pulled on me,
and then she just rolls up with a ponytail to Eva afterwards, like, hi, it's me, your friend.
Hello, I am Claudia. I am your Claudia, not the other Claudia.
She's so funny. I love Claudia. Like, that moment is just absolutely gold. Okay, so I thought we've talked about most things. We've got two more things to talk about, I think. Well,
I've got a big point to make as well, and I'm not going to let Emmett go until we discuss it.
Well, I'm excited.
Okay. I'm gonna make a point here, and then maybe it's a similar idea that you're making. I want just to know Emmett's initial reaction / how did he think when it was all explained of Jonas getting shot.
Okay.
As in like the divergent timelines.
Yeah, so at the end of episode 4, was it 5?
5, I think,
yeah. End of episode 5, end of episode 4 is when we find out about the unknown and where he is on the family tree. So end of episode 5 is when Jonas gets shot by a slightly older Old Martyr who comes out the back of the back room, comes and shoots him. And then you're like, hang on, what? He's just dead? I think you immediately said to you, I think we talked about this earlier in the week. You immediately thought, well, obviously there's going to be some sort of split timeline going on. And then it's revealed that during the apocalypse, there is a moment that you can actually split timelines. And basically, Jonas was at the same time taken to the alt world with Old Martyr, but he also in the timeline where he wasn't, he ran into the basement.
Yeah, he ran down the stairs to avoid the apocalypse, which is always a good rule of thumb. If you see the apocalypse coming, go to your basement, hide in there if you can.
Or jump in the water, either one.
Jump in the water in your basement, just fill your basement up like it's an indoor pool.
Yeah.
And get in the basement, jump in the water.
Double effect.
Again, because we had sort of... the alternate timelines bit, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, the moment he got shot, I was like, okay, so, like, obviously, some version of Jonas has to grow up to be the stranger, and then Adam, otherwise the whole timeline ends right here, and, like, we're midway through the season, and I don't think the last couple episodes are just going to be, like, everyone chilling in the new timeline.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so obviously there's a divergent point, and when they explained the divergent point, I was like, okay, that's interesting, so... There's the timeline where, Alt Marta is not interrupted, and then there's the timeline where she is, and she is pulled back. Again, I don't know necessarily then, so does that Alt Marta then get killed by the Adam? Because that means we see the other Alt Marta get murdered by Adam using the most... expensive abortion machine I have ever seen in my life. So it's like, so is that Alt Marta the one that gets killed, and then the other Alt Marta the one that gets caught by Bartos, then the one that gets scarred and becomes Eve?
The one that gets killed is the one that Jonas meets in the alt world in Winden High School, and then she. Well,
they're all the same Alt Marta. Like they all the Alt Martyrs. All the Old Martyrs I don't want to ruin anything, but if there are any, I'm not like obviously we have to talk in generalities here. They all rescued Jonas.
Well, yeah, that is true.
So they all rescued Jonas. The point in which the Old Martyrs sort of change is whenever Bartos takes.
Yeah, so he takes her before she rescues.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you're right. Yeah. So before she rescues Jonas. Sorry, I'm thinking of like they all meet Jonas. Okay, yeah, they all meet Jonas when he goes into the town. But before she goes into the thing, Bartos takes her.
Yeah,
and no, she's not the one. She's not the one, actually, and I don't know whether...
No, the one that Bartos takes is the one that will...
become Eve.
I can't remember what's in episode 8 and what's not. So I'm being tiptoey here, because Konrad, there's a different time when some different people take a martyr.
No, I think the stuff that... okay.
Yeah.
We'll pause there. For my perspective,
I think we've seen. I know, guys. I think we've seen it. I think we can.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have.
I think Magnus and Francisca go and take Marta when she's on the bike with Bartos. That's where the Alt Marta goes to Adam, and then eventually, and then she goes to the past.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of different.
Okay, this is really complicated. She gets taken by Magnus and Francisca. Then she goes to rescue Jonas. Then she gets taken. Then she gets like split by Bartos. It's like really okay. That's
so it. The one that doesn't rescue Jonas, goes on to become Eve, I think, and the one that does rescue Jonas, I think, gets killed by Adam in the future. Again, it's a little bit confusing, but I think that they're specifically killing the versions of themselves that have more connection to each other to avoid, the plan going awry.
Well, the thing, yes, you're right. You're right. In the fact actually is at the end of episode 7, I believe. You know how Adam turns on the machine and nothing happens, and he's like, what? And that's because he didn't realize that that Eva had actually got Bartos to rescue her. So he actually didn't know there was another origin baby inside a different Martyr's belly. He thought that the one he was killing was the only one.
Yeah, which is very interesting. So it's like, they specifically... So we spent a lot of time in the third season following two versions of our main characters who end up perishing horribly and in very painful ways. And then, we're following their alternate versions that, don't have all the same information or don't have the same connection to each other because of that. So it's like, oh, that's rough,
It's very cool. Very cool that plot point is mentioned on the radio. Right, I think it's in episode 2. They literally hand it to you and say, "This is what's going to happen." But
episode 2 of season 1, isn't it?
No, episode 2 of season 3. When Claudia's looking after Regina, there's a radio broadcast where they say, "Oh, time stood still for a nanosecond," and that's affected tides and all kinds of stuff. And it seems like it's just a little kind of throwaway bit of kind of world building, and then on reflection, it's like, "Oh no, that's actually it's
one of the biggest parts of the complicated mess we have in this season."
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing, Konrad, did that cover what you wanted to say? Or have you got
not in the slightest.
Oh, I'm very
okay. Okay, you go yours first, and then I'll go mine last. Okay.
So, I'm just gonna say it. There's a couple of glow ups in this season, and a couple of real bad bits of makeup and just general looks. So my big question to you, Emmett, is I mean, this is my opinion. On the glow ups end, we've got obviously Stranger looking like Nikolai Tesla at the beginning of this.
Very sexy.
Bartos looking like Patrick Bateman. Old Bartos, looking like Patrick Bateman. And then we've also got Eva's dodgy wig in episode 7, where she tries to make herself look like she's not a woman in her 70s by dyeing her hair. And Bartos's fake beard when Celia is giving birth. Well, how did you feel about the trials and tribulations of? I guess Bartos is actually one of the main the main victims of this, but.
Yeah, you could say that Bartos is one of the main victims in general with everything that's going on. Obviously we make fun of Bartos in the early seasons, but season 3 really made me sympathize with the poor boy. He's like he's everybody's pawn. Like, he is the guy who knows the least of everything and is just getting used and abused by people who were at some point his friend, and I just kind of feel bad for him on that point. Yes, his beard is very dodgy in that scene, but him as an adult, good on him. Like, he's looking well. He had a nice, happy relationship, though it does get undermined when he realizes that the children, it's all part of the plan still.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that he was still happy for most of his marriage.
I think he and Celia had a legitimate relationship. I find it very funny in that scene where Celia is giving birth and young Bartos has the fake beard, and then because they're playing so fast and loose at that point with the timeline, it's like 5 years later he's turned into old Bartos. It's like, Jesus, what happened to you in those 5 years, Bartos?
Well, he had a child.
That is true. He had a child.
It turned out it's the same thing with Star Wars, where it's like episode 3 to episode 4 for Obi-Wan, where it's just like, you have become a whole different person, and it's not been enough time.
Also, there's the conversation that in the standards of 1910 or whatever it was. Being at the birth of one of his children is absolutely fantastic, but in the standards of modern day, because he is a modern man, let's not forget, he missed the birth of one of his kids. So that was shameful for Bartos, in my opinion, and that's why he didn't redeem himself in my eyes.
Bartos, bad friend, bad father, bad husband, bad hair.
What I would have loved is when he was handed his child, if he just went, Yakpa.
That would have been so good. And then he walks in, and then the next one's a girl. He says, "Not Yakpa."
Not Yakpa. He is a. Bartos is a really believable little shithead when he's a teenager, where he's he likes to think he's better than he is, but he isn't. I think it's hard not to on some level have sympathy for him. Obviously we joke, but it's hard not to have some sympathy for him, because it's he just goes through so much shit, and he just is because everyone else seems to have a little bit more freedom to a certain extent, and like gets that, but like he just gets pushed around by everybody, and there's nothing he can do about it.
He's like one of the only people who stands up to the stranger as well, and says like, you are literally turning into Adam, and like, and Magnus and Franziska, God love them, but they are at best neutral in that whole thing. They're just like, look, we're in love, we're just gonna hang out, I guess.
Yeah.
You burn yourself up if you want. Whereas Bartels at least rages against that to some extent.
Yeah, and we theorize that like everyone makes the connection and sees Mom being like, is Noah future Bartos? And it's like, no, it's Bartos' son. And then it's like, he gets pushed around by his own son as a priest who manipulates him. It's just like, oh god, the poor bastard. And like the fact that like I love the moment that like he storms out, because you get the feeling that he's basically maybe about to like just leave and be like, go somewhere else, but then he gets pulled back in with Celia being like, appearing in the rain, and he gets sort of trapped in that life again. So he's always being manipulated by somebody, and he's just not smart enough to ever quite recognize that it's happening until he's like too deep in.
Yeah.
And like it's like he can't, like when like his son's born and he realizes that this is Noah, and he has that moment, he's like he can't do anything about it because it's like he still loves Celia, and he doesn't want to abandon his family.
Yeah.
So he's just like, oh.
It just becomes,
just,
well, I guess you're going to kill me with a pickaxe in about 30 years' time, or about 20 years.
Yeah, it's like, it's time to die, I guess. Oh, God. And I do enjoy the fact that, like, you figure out, obviously, that it's like, oh, no. It's like, it never goes well for him,
I'm going to be honest with you, I knew that was Bartos the moment I saw him. It looks exactly like him. Like,
yeah.
I did not.
That guy was it's like they look so similar that that's like I think the best bit of casting in the whole show.
Yeah, well, it's like I did not necessarily pick up. It was, for me, it was like a slow realization afterwards where I was like, oh no, because I was like, where's Bart? Like, where's their version of Bartos and all this? And then I thought back and I was like, he was the one that Noah killed.
Yep.
Oh no. In his start to darkness, and I'm like, oh, poor Bartos. Like he just, he never gets that freedom.
Killed with a pickaxe to like the shoulder as well. Like it's a horrible way to die.
Right through the collarbone.
Yeah,
not even to like the head, so it's instantaneous. Like just he gets to like slowly bleed out for a bit before his son finishes them off.
I'm not convinced that would kill you in one hit. Like,
it
wouldn't reach your heart.
I'm assuming he took like at least a couple more hits, but you still have to wait. And I imagine getting a pickaxe pulled out of you is not pleasant.
I'd imagine.
And also the knowledge that like your son is killing you for the word of a man that you know is full of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I mean, Bartos must have believed it a little bit because he did get the tattoo.
He did get the tat. He got inked up at some point between when we last see him in episode 7 of season 3 and.
I bet you it's because of Celia. Celia convinced him.
I bet you it was because, like, obviously
she's into guys with tattoos.
Yeah, she's into guys with tattoos, and she's dyed in the wool like believer of Adam because she's been raised in that environment. So she was like probably the voice in his ear, keeping him with the group until he was needed to die, Oh God.
Yeah. All right. Well, there we go. That's great. I just want to know, Emmett. Last thing we'll do here is just, do you have any I think you've already mentioned about the power plant. Any other theories for the last episode?
Oh, I feel like
how's this going to end happily? Explain to me how we get from where we are at the end of episode 7 to a happy ending.
A rosy happy ending where everyone gets what they want. I feel like the only way we're going to get even remotely a semi-happy ending weirdly involves destroying both timelines and like creating a third timeline, like a third branch where things can go differently. Maybe it's in destroying the power plant, maybe it's in destroying something else, or maybe it's about creating something new.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Maybe it's Maybelline. But I feel like Adam and Eve's timelines can't exist without pain being caused. And also, it's probably a very silly thing, but like if you were to add another branch to the infinity symbol, it would become like the triple symbol that is so apparent in the show, where it's like 3 circles, sort of like I don't remember what that.
Triquetra.
Sukecha, like that, it would become so like if we were to create a third timeline using what they know from these two timelines, so like their timelines would not be fixed. They would unfortunately be gone and probably destroyed forever, but they could create a third timeline where like things worked out, and you know, if nothing else, at least we would have a timeline where things, you know, turned out semi better. Obviously, the big sentence of the big thing of the show is the end is the beginning and the beginning is the end. So, you know, the ending is somehow going to tie right back into the beginning of the show in some way.
We kind of had that in episode 7, didn't we? We kind of
with the montage. The montage. But like, I feel like, you know, the end is the beginning is the end. I feel like there has to be some sort of tie-in to like the original first episode. So maybe there's some sort of change that has to happen there to like become the end. It's very complicated. This season has thrown me through the loop a lot, and I'm very curious on how this is going to end. But I feel like the only way to have even like a semi-happy ending is for Adam and Eve to maybe work together finally and be like, okay, new timeline, everyone gets reset. You know, like we're gonna try this one more time.
It's like Avengers Endgame. Click your finger. We want everyone back, but we want everyone who's still now to be here.
Yeah. Spider-Man's dead.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's dead.
That's how this ends.
Yeah.
All right.
Poor Peter.
All right. Awesome. Thanks very much, Emmett. We'll see you next week for the finale of Dark.
I'm gonna have a streak of grey through my hair by the end of this.
Nice.
Just with the amount of emotional whiplash I've gone through, you know, just like beating me around, you know.
Rogue. Yeah, it'll look lovely on you.
Oh, thank you.
It'll be better than the little cheesy beard Bartos has. It'll be a good way to see that you're 1 week older. Right, guys, let's move on to the next segment then. Emmett will not be there, but Konrad, you will. See you in a minute.
Back into the void I go.
Bye, Emmett.
We're back with Konrad. And Konrad, tell us, what did you find out about season 3 on your rewatch?
So I don't know if there was like that much that I noticed this time. Oh, in fact, actually, that's a lie. There is one thing I definitely did notice this time around, and that is that the song that I really liked, that Katarina is listening to when her mum comes in and hits her around the back of the head, is a song called "Is This Love" by Survivor, and I listened to it a lot this week because I was like, oh, this is an absolute banger of a track.
That's great.
Narratively speaking, I don't know if there was that much that I really noticed that I didn't pick up the first time round. I think what really struck me this time round was just kind of like revisiting the deaths of a lot of the characters in this series, which we have spoken about briefly with Emmett. But like, I'd forgotten how brutal Burnt's death was as well. Like this.
Oh yeah.
It's really horrible the way they kill him, and it's especially when you know that like he's. I guess. We don't know if he and Claudia are alive, right, by the end of this, like once the timelines are fixed.
Well, we know, we don't know if they're alive. We know that they did exist because they're in the photo, but we don't know if they're alive. I'd imagine because it's played as so happy, I'd imagine that they are still alive.
Yeah, it's just weird to see. I suppose actually, like the point.
Burnt probably. Let's be honest. Burnt's probably not alive.
Yeah, that's a fair point because he was old in the 80s.
He would have been like 110 or something.
Like the Emperor, just like wrapped in a rope. Because the point I was going to make was that we don't actually see that much horrible stuff befall the surviving characters at the end, but that's just not true on reflection because we see Katarina and Hanna and Peter all have horrible things happen to them. But it still struck me that Burnt's death is very brutal. I stand by, and I know you're going to disagree with this. I know you are, but I went back and watched it, and the image of the bodies in episode 3.
God.
Listen, I've taken a screenshot of it. I'm going to send it to you after this. Listeners, if there's not a screenshot on the screen, Anthony is rewriting history here. Like, okay, I'm going to send you the screenshot of it. Check the tapes, okay? It's Benny and what's his face? Jurgen, and then an unnamed body that looks very much like the youngest Gary with the kind of cut on the lip. And
so are you suggesting...
I don't know how this works, I'll be honest.
That when Marta was put into that superconductor abortion machine, the baby within her was taken by the dark matter.
Yep.
It grew and traveled through time, and then its body turned up in 2020.
Yeah, it grew in like subspace somewhere, like, and then was just popped out at the age of like 12 or however old that kid is, right as the disaster in the Prime Winden was happening. Unfortunately,
I could get behind that.
That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. That like why is there this is the problem with this theory is that. As you know, you and the listeners know, like I tend to like be pretty good about spotting like visual clues when it comes, but unfortunately, sometimes a picture is just a picture, like, and because I'm like looking out for that stuff, I'm like, there's significance to this. Like, it reminded me of when there's like that file for an unnamed character that Ulrich is looking through when he's investigating the murders, and I was like, this character's going to come back in a big way. I can't remember their name; they're never mentioned again.
I'm really looking forward to seeing this picture now because I'm telling you,
put it on the screen and you be the judge.
It'll be there.
You like get in touch with Baron Boyardor and Jan Fries and you tell them to explain themselves. The other thing that I did notice, which again is a very small thing, but it stood out to me, was that I didn't notice that it is actually Bernd and Greta and Helga on the posters for the nuclear plant.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it seemed odd to, like, I'd assumed it was, some, German family that they'd got to pose for them. It makes it really funny because it's like
Bert actually feels like he's the one bringing the wealth. Like, it's a bit like Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, no, it's very much that, but it's just funny as well knowing what their actual family dynamics are like, where it's like you couldn't have maybe got a slightly more suitable family to represent the this nuclear dream that you're bringing to Winden.
Well, it turned out to be actually pretty accurate. The family was a bit of a doomed family, and so was the town. So
yes, that's true. Yeah, I guess the only other thing we didn't really get a chance to mention or to even ask Emmett this question, but I think episode 5 is still one of my favorite episodes in the whole series. Just so much happens in it, like the deaths of Katarina and Peter, and it's got that like lovely long take of like Jonas and Old Martyr outside the caves as they like kind of debate what they're going to do and like kiss.
The camera dances around them, doesn't it?
I think it's the last time they kiss before he dies. If I'm not mistaken, because he dies at the end of that episode. In fact, so it must be.
Hang on, was that? Did they do that kiss after they'd already had sex?
Yes. Yeah, they'd already had sex at that point, I think. Yeah, they must have done.
Well, they have sex at the end of episode 4 when it's revealed. Gary is revealed. Yeah,
that's right. Because episode 5 is at the end of that. Jonas is killed, or one of the Prime Jonases is killed. Has there ever been like a distinction made between those, like the naming of the different timeline versions of each person?
Not really. I call in my own mind. I don't think I've ever said this out loud, but the one who gets to the basement, I call him Adam Jonas.
Oh, okay, Adam. Yeah, that makes sense. I just it struck me that I'd not actually thought about how to name him. And yeah, episode 8 still heartbreaking. I still like, the sentimental heart that I have. I'm a romantic soul, and I still hear, about what's his face, Marek, and I can't remember his wife's name.
Sonia.
Marek and Sonia, yeah.
Anagram of Jonas.
Yes. Yeah. American Sonia's baby being called Charlotte, and Hanna choosing to name a baby Jonas, and I'm like, you know what? They're still in there. They're still in there somewhere. Who knows? What? Maybe the stars will align in Torben Volan's DNA, and somehow our Jonas will come out of that union. I don't know. Listen, I'll be the first to admit I'm not a biologist. I'm not a DNA expert, but my understanding is that anything.
But if Torben's got it in him,
yeah,
now's the time to show it.
Yeah,
Torben.
Come on, Torben. You've done literally nothing this whole show. This is your moment. But yeah, it's just as good as it was the first time I watched it. It's still such a touching ending. The sort of Matrix scene in the sort of place between times where they see each other as children is still like just one of the most touching things I've ever seen. This idea that they're perennially linked to each other is so profound and touching. And
fuck the other martyr. Like see the one for the first few seasons.
Yeah.
Fuck her. Like,
I do love that. Like, they kind of just, like, they're like, she's dead. Don't worry about it.
She was just like the only reason. Like, I like to think of it like she was actually like she was a real proper victim of this show because the only it always implies that like the only reason Jonas was like infatuated with her is because
of his link to Old Martyr.
It's because his link with the other Martyr. Yeah. Yes, like she herself is a deja vu of what he actually wants to be with.
Yeah, and like and his infatuation with someone who isn't even her gets her killed, which is like that's a really good point. Actually, it is incredibly tragic that she basically doesn't even get like properly loved, I guess, because they don't really have a chance to have a relationship before she gets killed, and then she's erased from existence without any real song and dance about it. So
and even the fans don't really care because we got another martyr coming in. We
replaced her with Old Martyr.
Really, really, like she has one of the most tragic endings, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, she definitely does. But
she should have went with Bartos. If only he didn't say nice hair. That was not a good opening line, Bartos.
Yeah, I mean, once again, yet another crime that we can lay at the door of Bartos.
Yeah, he got her killed. Like in
many ways. Yeah,
if he was a better guy and actually would treat her well, because like she didn't have that link to Jonas, so she could have actually been convinced that Bartos was the better fella.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point as well. She never saw never saw Jonas in the cupboards.
She just fancied a bit of her nephew.
Yeah. She was like, you know what? I'm a teenage girl and I'm allowed to have some fun. And little did she know that she was getting involved in things way above her like her level of involvement in this in this series.
That's a real like shame on like that's like a real big thing on society, isn't it? Like when guys want to have a little fun with a family member, it's it's deliverance, and when Marta wants to, it's girls just wanna have fun.
It's yet another double standard with this woke feminist culture.
Okay, we're
that's
joking.
A joke.
Listen, I know the best movie podcast Cruella thumbnail might have led you down a different road. That dislike, that hits hard. But we don't mean that. We don't mean that.
No.
Okay. Stamp that out right now.
On that dour note. But
yes,
still a very good show. Marta's still a very good character, and she's allowed to sleep with whoever she wants to sleep with. She's a grown woman.
She is. Okay, well, not the eyes of the law.
No, that's a fair point. I'm not just...
She's allowed to sleep with who she wants to sleep with.
I'm just digging myself a bigger hole. Stop.
All right, okay. Well, thanks very much, guys. We'll be back next week for Emmett's reaction to episode 8, as well as a head-to-head quiz between Konrad and Emmett. We'll see what happens.
If I get absolutely battered, I apologise in advance.
If it's draw and I'm gonna go to, a sudden death question, I'll tell you the sudden death question now, Konrad, because you're gonna get it wrong no matter what. Because I know you, and you have too much pride as a man. The question will be the unknown character on the pictures in the future apocalypse world. Is that the youngest Gary? And you will have to say yes.
Yeah, I can't not do it. I can't not do it.
Yeah, and the answer will be no.
I will fall on that sword if that's the question.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. We'll catch you next time. Subscribe to the channel, all that sort of thing. Like the video. Leave us a comment if you want to have a chat. And we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the After Dark podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.